Drive a Jeep, Ram, Dodge, or Chrysler. The company behind it almost died last year. Market share collapsed so fast, the board fired the CEO. Their fix: admit the plan failed, bet $70 billion on a new one. But that's not why people are talking. It's one engine, back from the dead, that broke their own ordering system in 6 weeks. The collapse nobody in Detroit wanted to talk about. To understand why this announcement matters, you have to understand how bad things got first. Because this wasn't a company making a proactive, forward-thinking pivot. This was damage control on a massive scale. Stellantis was formed in 2021 when Fiat Chrysler Automobiles merged with the French group PSA, the company behind Peugeot and Citroën. On paper, it was a genius move. Combine Jeep and Ram's American muscle with European engineering and global reach, and you get one of the largest car companies on the planet. 14 brands under one roof. Massive scale, massive potential. The man running it was Carlos Tavares, a cost-cutting, efficiency-obsessed executive who had a very clear vision. Go all in on electric vehicles, cut spending everywhere else, and squeeze every possible dollar out of the existing lineup. For a while, it worked. Stellantis posted some of the highest profit margins in the entire auto industry. But underneath those profit numbers, cracks were forming. Dealers in the United States were furious. Stellantis kept shipping them inventory they couldn't sell at prices customers wouldn't pay. Jeep and Ram, two of the most beloved American brands on the road, started losing market share quarter after quarter. Quality complaints piled up. And the product pipeline, the new vehicles that are supposed to keep a brand exciting, basically dried up. By late 2024, the math had turned brutal. Stellantis' U.S. sales had dropped by double digits. Inventory was stacking up on dealer lots faster than it could move. And in December of 2024, Carlos Tavares did something almost unheard of in the corporate world. He resigned, not retired, not pushed out quietly with a golden parachute press release. He was effectively forced out by his own board after they lost confidence in his ability to turn things around. For a company this size, that's an earthquake. This is the equivalent of a football team firing its head coach mid-season because the losses got too embarrassing to explain away. So Stellantis needed a new leader. And in mid-2025, they landed on Antonio Filosa, an Italian executive who had spent years running Jeep and Ram in North America before stepping into the CEO chair. Filosa wasn't an outsider brought in to shake things up with fresh eyes. He was an insider who had watched the collapse happen from the inside, brand by brand, dealership by dealership. And what Filosa found when he took over wasn't pretty. Stellantis had bet enormous resources on an all-electric future that American and European buyers weren't actually ready for at the pace the company assumed. Meanwhile, actual demand, real customers walking into real dealerships, wanted something different. Hybrids, trucks, and frankly, some of the gas-powered classics the company had been quietly starving of investment. Filosa's first move wasn't flashy. It was blunt honesty. He told investors, dealers, and the press that Stellantis had lost touch with its customers, that the strategy needed to change. And he spent the first several months of his tenure doing something most CEOs hate doing in public: admitting the previous plan had failed. That honesty set the stage for what came next. Because in May of 2026, Filosa didn't just announce a course correction. He announced a full-scale reconstruction of the entire company. And the number attached to it stopped the entire industry in its tracks. The $70 billion reset. In May 2026, at Stellantis' headquarters in Auburn Hills, Michigan, Antonio Filosa stood in front of investors and unveiled what he's calling the Fast Lane 2030 plan. 60 billion euros, roughly $70 billion US dollars, over 5 years. To put that number in perspective, that's more than the entire annual GDP of countries like Uruguay or Bulgaria. That's not a marketing budget line item. That's a company betting its entire future on getting this right. Here's what's actually in the plan: 60 new vehicles by 2030, not 60 facelifts, 60 distinct models spread across Stellantis' brands. And the mix tells you everything about how much the strategy shifted from the Tavares era. 29 of those 60 vehicles will be fully electric. 15 will be plug-in hybrids or range-extended EVs. 24 will be traditional hybrids. And 39 will be gas-powered or mild hybrid vehicles. Notice something? Those numbers add up to more than 60 because a lot of these models will be offered with multiple powertrain choices. That's intentional. Filosa is calling this a multi-energy strategy, and it is the exact opposite of what Carlos Tavares was doing. Tavares wanted the company racing toward all-electric, full stop, no exceptions. Filosa is telling the market, we'll build whatever customers actually want to buy, whether that's a full EV, a hybrid, or a good old-fashioned gas engine. That's a massive philosophical shift for a company this size, and it's not subtle. It's basically Stellantis' new leadership standing up and saying, in polite corporate language, our old boss bet wrong, and we're not making that mistake twice. 24 billion euros of that $70 billion plan is earmarked specifically for platforms, powertrains, and new technology. And the goal isn't just new vehicles, it's building them faster. Right now, it can take Stellantis up to 40 months to go from a car's initial concept to a customer driving it off the lot. Filosa wants that cut down to 24 months. That's not a small tweak. That's restructuring how an entire global engineering operation actually works, and it's the kind of internal surgery that most automakers talk about for years and never actually pull off. By 2030, the company wants half of its entire global vehicle lineup running on just 3 shared platforms, including a brand new modular architecture they're calling Stella One. Fewer platforms means lower engineering costs, faster development, and, critically, the ability to build multiple different vehicles on the same factory line without retooling everything from scratch. And here's the number that should catch the attention of anyone who's watched Jeep and Ram struggle over the past few years. Stellantis wants North American revenue to grow 25% by 2030, with sales climbing from around 1.4 million vehicles to 1.9 million, even while the overall industry stays roughly flat. That's not organic growth from a rising tide. That's Stellantis saying they plan to take market share directly from competitors. On top of all that, the company is targeting $7 billion in annual cost cuts by 2028, and they want to be generating positive cash flow again by 2027. Translation: this isn't just a product plan, it's a full financial rescue mission wrapped inside a product announcement, and 4 brands are getting the lion's share of the money. Jeep, Ram, Peugeot, and Fiat are receiving 70% of all product investment under this plan. If you're a Chrysler, Dodge, or Alfa Romeo fan, don't panic. We'll get to what's happening there. But make no mistake about where Stellantis is placing its biggest bets. This is the largest strategic reset in the company's 5-year history, and it's happening because the old plan genuinely broke. Now let's talk about how they're actually going to pull it off, because the answer involves partnering with some very unexpected names. The partnerships that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. Here's where this story gets genuinely strange, in a good way. Because one of the biggest pillars of Stellantis' turnaround plan isn't building everything themselves. It's teaming up with companies that on paper look like competitors, including 2 Chinese automakers. Stellantis announced new manufacturing partnerships with Leapmotor and Dongfeng, 2 Chinese car companies, to build vehicles and share factory capacity, primarily for the European market. Think about that for a second. An American-rooted, European-headquartered auto giant is now leaning on Chinese engineering and manufacturing muscle to stay competitive. 5 years ago, that sentence would have sounded like a joke. Today, it's the actual strategy. Why would Stellantis do this? Because Chinese automakers, BYD chief among them, have spent the last decade building electric vehicles faster and cheaper than almost anyone in the West. Rather than spend another decade and tens of billions of dollars trying to catch up on their own, Stellantis decided the smarter move was to plug directly into that expertise through partnership. It's a pragmatic, slightly humbling move. And it tells you exactly how seriously they're taking the competitive threat from Chinese EV makers. To be clear, Filosa has said these Chinese-partnered vehicles are focused on Europe for now, and he doesn't expect them showing up in U.S. showrooms anytime soon, mainly because of steep American tariffs on Chinese-linked vehicles and technology. But he did leave the door open for these products eventually reaching Mexico and Canada, which, if you remember how BYD is using Mexican manufacturing to get closer to the U.S. market, should sound very familiar. Stellantis isn't stopping at Chinese partnerships either. They also announced a collaboration with Tata Motors and its Jaguar Land Rover division to explore joint product development specifically for the U.S. market. Two legacy automakers with very different specialties deciding it's smarter to share the load than compete head-on in every category. Then there's the technology side, which might be the most forward-looking part of this whole announcement. Stellantis is partnering with Qualcomm to bring Snapdragon digital chassis technology into their next-generation vehicles, powering driver assistance, in-car entertainment, and connectivity systems across the lineup. They're also expanding a partnership with a company called Applied Intuition to develop something called STLA Brain, an AI-driven software platform designed to modernize how these vehicles think and communicate. And then there's the announcement that genuinely surprised people outside the auto industry entirely. Stellantis, a self-driving startup called Wave, and Uber are teaming up to develop and deploy Level 4 driverless robotaxis at scale. Level 4 means the vehicle can drive itself in defined conditions with no human behind the wheel needed as a backup. Stellantis wants to combine its manufacturing scale with Wave's self-driving software and Uber's massive ride-hailing network to actually get autonomous vehicles onto real streets, carrying real passengers sooner rather than later. Think about what that means. A company that was hemorrhaging market share 18 months ago is now positioning itself at the center of the robotaxi race, a space currently dominated by the conversation around Waymo and Tesla. That's an ambitious flex for a company that was in genuine crisis mode barely a year earlier. Starting in 2027, Stellantis says it will roll 3 of these AI technologies into its vehicles: STLA, Brain for Software Intelligence, STLA, Smart Cockpit for the in-car experience, and STLA AutoDrive for advanced driver assistance and autonomous capability. That's the tech backbone this entire $70 billion plan is being built on top of. Now here's the ask, because if you're finding this breakdown useful, this is exactly the moment to hit that like button, drop a comment telling me which Stellantis brand you're most excited or worried about, and subscribe with the notification bell turned on so you don't miss the next deep dive into what's shaking up the car industry. It genuinely helps this channel keep making videos like this. Now, back to the story. Because we still haven't gotten to the part that's got American truck and Jeep fans the most excited. The comeback nobody expected, and the product, Blitz, that's coming. While all of this strategic reshuffling was happening behind the scenes, something much simpler was quietly proving that Stellantis still knows how to build cars Americans actually want. And it involves an engine everyone thought was dead. For 2025, Stellantis pulled the plug on the 5.7-liter Hemi V8 in the Ram 1500, replacing it with a smaller twin-turbo inline-six they called the Hurricane. On paper, the Hurricane made more horsepower and better fuel economy. In practice, truck buyers hated the idea. They wanted the V8 rumble. They wanted the engine that's been synonymous with Ram trucks for 2 decades. So Stellantis brought it back, And when the 5.7-liter Hemi returned to the Ram 1500 lineup, the response was immediate and enormous. 10,000 orders were placed on the very first day it became available again. Within the first 6 weeks, that number climbed past 50,000 units. Dealers had been begging for this, customers had been waiting for it, and when Stellantis listened, the orders poured in fast enough to catch even their own leadership off guard. Antonio Filosa has pointed to that moment specifically as proof of what his new strategy is about. Building what customers actually want, not what an internal 5-year electrification memo said they should want. It's become something of a symbol for the entire turnaround, a return to giving American drivers a genuine choice instead of forcing a single technological path on them. That philosophy is showing up across the whole lineup. Jeep is rolling out a brand new Cherokee for the North American market, badged the KM, built on a completely new platform and offered with a turbocharged hybrid powertrain. The first time Jeep has paired a gas engine with electric motors in this segment in the U.S. Jeep is also bringing an all-electric Recon SUV to market, but notably, they're planning to offer a gas-powered version of that same Recon too. Again, that multi-energy philosophy in action. On top of that, a sportier two-door Wrangler variant, reportedly called the Scrambler, is in the pipeline for enthusiasts who want something a little more focused than the standard four-door. Ram isn't just resting on the Hemi comeback either. The brand is adding a full-size SUV to its lineup for the first time, alongside continuing production of the Rampage and Dakota, and in a move that'll make fleet buyers and small business owners happy, bringing back a mid-sized Pro Master City cargo van. Dodge is getting real investment too, after years of feeling like the forgotten sibling in the Stellantis family. A full-size SUV is coming, along with the new Copperhead sports car, aimed at reconnecting with the performance-focused buyers who made Dodge's muscle car reputation in the first place. And Chrysler, a brand that's been running on fumes with basically just the Pacifica minivan for years, is finally getting new life. 2 new Fiat-based small crossovers are planned, along with a larger SUV, giving Chrysler an actual lineup again instead of a single aging model carrying the entire brand. Meanwhile, in Europe, Stellantis confirmed its historic Mirafiori plant in Turin, Italy, will become home to a brand new dedicated electric vehicle platform starting in 2028, underpinning at least 2, possibly 3, high-volume EVs. And the target price point on those cars is roughly €15,000, around $17,000. That's a genuinely affordable electric vehicle aimed squarely at European buyers who've been priced out of the EV conversation entirely. Add it all up, and you get a company simultaneously chasing autonomous robotaxis with Uber, building cheap EVs in Italy, bringing back a beloved V8 in America, and giving neglected brands like Chrysler and Dodge their first real product investment in years. That's an enormous, sprawling bet, and it only makes sense once you understand the philosophy underneath it. Stop guessing what the future should look like and start building what customers are actually asking for across every price point and every powertrain type at once. What this actually means for you as a buyer. So here's the honest answer to the question you're probably asking right now. Does any of this actually matter if you're just trying to buy a truck or an SUV in the next couple of years? If you're a Ram or Jeep buyer, the answer is yes, directly. 70% of Stellantis' product investment is flowing straight into those 2 brands, plus Peugeot and Fiat overseas. That means more new models, faster development cycles, and based on the Hemi's comeback, a company that's now actually listening when customers say, "Bring back the thing we actually wanted." If you've been holding off on a new Ram or Jeep because the recent lineup felt stale or overpriced for what you got, the next few years are specifically designed to fix that complaint. If you're a Dodge or Chrysler loyalist, the news is genuinely encouraging after years of neglect. These brands were essentially left to wither under the old strategy. New investment, new platforms, and actual new products are coming. Not just a marketing refresh on an aging design. If you care about the price of new vehicles overall, keep an eye on that European €15,000 EV platform. History shows that when a major automaker cracks an affordable EV formula in one market, the cost engineering behind it eventually finds its way into other regions too. It's not coming to America tomorrow, but it's a signal of where battery and manufacturing costs are heading industry-wide. And if you're the kind of car enthusiast who pays attention to where the technology is going, not just the sheet metal, the Wave and Uber robo-taxi partnership is worth watching closely. Autonomous ride-hailing at scale, built by a major legacy automaker instead of a Silicon Valley startup, is a genuinely different approach than what Waymo or Tesla are doing. If it works, it could reshape how millions of people think about car ownership entirely, not just how they drive their own car. There's also a bigger, quieter story hiding underneath all of this. For years, the assumption in the American auto industry was that going all in on electric vehicles was the only responsible long-term strategy, that any hesitation was just fear of change. Stellantis' collapse under Carlos Tavares and the recovery plan Antonio Filosa is now executing is one of the loudest real-world counter-arguments to that assumption we've seen from a major global automaker. Customers wanted choice. They wanted hybrids. They wanted, in some cases, a good old V8. And a $70 billion turnaround plan is now built specifically around giving it to them. So that's the full story behind Stellantis' biggest announcement in years. The collapse, the $70 billion reset, the surprising partnerships, and what it actually means for the next Jeep or Ram sitting in your driveway. If you learned something new watching this, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely tells YouTube to put this video in front of more people who care about cars as much as you do. And if you haven't already, subscribe and tap that notification bell because we're covering the biggest shakeups in the auto industry every single week. And you don't want to miss what's coming next. Drop a comment down below and let me know. Are you Team Hemi, or are you excited about where Stellantis' electric and hybrid lineup is headed? I read every single one, and honestly, some of the best video ideas on this channel have come straight from you guys in the comments. If you want to go deeper on how a car company actually collapses from the inside, go check out the video right there on your screen. It breaks down exactly what happened when BYD's own empire started showing cracks, and trust me, there are some uncomfortable parallels to what we just talked about today. Thanks for riding along with me on this one. I'll see you in the next video.